Less than 20 feet off of Highway 95, in the middle of Goldfield, Nevada, lies this plaque commemorating the Gans-Nelson fight of 1906. Now, Highway 95 is a major artery between Las Vegas and Reno, and thousands of people travel it every day, yet few ever notice this marker. Now, maybe that's symbolic of how Joe Gans himself is somewhat lost to history. Well, this is the story of the fight of the century.
Hi, I'm Ted Fe, and I like finding history. It can be in a museum, a hotel, a park, inside or outside, in a church, a house, a store, and of course old buildings and even ghost towns. Wherever there were people, they made history. So I've set out to find those cool places and things that have a great past. Just think of me as your history delivery guy, who brings you new and fresh servings of history to go. The first thing I set out to do was find out who the two people were on the plaque. So I contacted Kenny Dalton of Reno, Nevada. Now, Kenny is founder and president of Our Stories, Inc., a nonprofit organization which researches and is committed to telling what they call the unsung stories.
Being in Reno, Nevada, they always talk about the fight of the century with Jack Johnson. And when I learned about Joe Gans, I said the fight of the century was Joe Gans and battling Nelson in Goldfield, Nevada. Most of the people go, where was that? And who? They don't even know about the fight. But to me, that was the fight of the century. Joe Gans was a technician, a thinker. He was more of a gentleman fighter. He didn't fit the stereotype of the black athlete at all. But somebody offered him a fight, and he said, well, you know what, I'm gonna travel all the way out west and be in a fight.
Traveling out west in 1906 meant coming to the epicenter of the newest gold rush on the western frontier. What began in central Nevada as a silver strike in 1900 became a full-blown mining boom by 1906. Thousands were flocking to Goldfield, Nevada, where new buildings were going up daily. Promoters called boosters looked for every reason to attract people to the new town, including throwing a prize fight.
Some businessmen in the community thought that this would be a good way to bring interest to the Goldfield area. And it actually worked out that way. There were 7,000 people that came here. Teddy Roosevelt's son, Kermit, sat in the front row of the fight. Jack London, an author, famous author, was here. You had all these people that were in this town during that time for this fight. So it really promoted the area by bringing the fight here. And it was the first time that they had a prize fight with a black fighter and a white fighter taking place.
Oscar battling Nelson was a Danish lightweight fighter. In September 1906, when he came to Goldfield, he was the defending world lightweight champion. It was the perfect fight to promote. A championship was on the line, and it would be a grand contest between Gans, the old master, and Nelson, the durable Dane. A promoter's dream. Well, I met up with Brian Smalley, who took me to the site of one of the fight's promotional events.
What is this place, Brian?
This is the bank where battling Nelson had the picture taken of himself with his huge pyramid-shaped pile of gold coins with his head on top. It was a publicity still to show the people that they put all the newspapers and magazines and things to promote this fight. And as everybody knows, the bigger pile of money, the more people will come see this fantastic fight that's going on, and to get people to come to this fight.
That's a real a modern day thing, isn't it? Too. I mean,
Pretty
anything
much.
You could do to bring attention to your event, right?
This big pile of money was all to bring attention.
All to bring attention. But the banks were important in that fight, weren't they? I mean,
Absolutely.
They held the money and the purse and were behind the promotional funds, right? The banks were critical.
Absolutely, because a lot of your investors to bring the fight here were bank owners.
But the banking industry was so important here and such a critical part. I mean, it was all about the money.
Everything's about the money.
Isn't that true in so many ways? And certainly this fight was.
Absolutely.
This fight was all about the money. But it became about something larger in the end.
The main thing was to draw attention to this town, the mines, that was a vibrant producing entity. Gold's being produced, people are coming, there's money being made. And it's like its own stock promotion. Keep people spending money, buying the stocks, and to get rich at the mines.
The promotion in the papers talked about Nelson and Gans with racist caricatures and remarks about the old master Gans. There was controversy and excitement in the air as the fight approached. Everything a promoter could ask for.
On September 3rd, 1906, this place would have been bustling with activity. This is the Santa Fe Saloon, and it was built in 1905, and it's been in continuous use in Nevada ever since. But in 1906, it would have been alive with activity. There would have been people arguing and fighting over who was going to win the fight, Gans or Nelson, and you can bet they were betting. Now this whole thing, the whole buzz, the whole activity, the whole fight was all due to the promotional efforts of Tex Rickard. Tex was born in Kansas City, ultimately moved to Texas where he got his nickname, and then went to Alaska for the Great Klondike Rush. Made some money up there, then headed down to Goldfield in 1904 when he heard about this new strike. He became quite an entrepreneur, establishing saloons and other businesses. He was one of the first people to build a permanent house, a beautiful brick little house right here in Goldfield. And now he was determined to make this the fight of the century, to promote Goldfield and the mining stock interests. Later, Tex went on to establish and promote Madison Square Garden as the boxing mecca of America.
For just a moment, I wanted to digress from the fight and meet up with Brian again. We walked along Highway 95 through town until he stopped me.
Tell me about this place.
This is Tex Rickard's house. He came from Alaska to Goldfield. He owned a northern saloon here. This house is his home. And what's cool about this house that most people don't realize, it has no kitchens.
No kitchens?
No kitchens.
No kitchen at all?
No kitchen at all, because he never ate.
He never ate here?
No, he didn't. There was never a kitchen built in this house.
No kitchen?
No kitchen.
That's something all by itself. Probably ate at his own restaurant.
Probably. And amongst the others, to the Goldfield or the Palm Grill or one of the other many high-class establishments where everybody all the people with money hung out.
Wow. But this is a really nice home. I mean, it's built of brick.
Yes.
You don't see that very often in these towns.
No, not real often. Usually it's stick and mud.
So this is a really great part of this story because this is his home.
Yep.
This is Tex Rickard, the guy who promoted this fight.
Who wound up in New York.
And he wound up in New York.
At Madison Square Gardens.
It's true. This fight would set up Tex Rickard, and he would give New York one of its most famous venues. But let's get back here to Goldfield on September 3rd, 1906. The fight is about to begin.
Before the fights, they always read telegrams that people get. And one of the telegrams that they read was from Joe Gans' foster mother. And she said, Joe, just bring home the bacon. And that's a saying that people use today is bring home the bacon. And that's what he did, you know. And I look at that and I think, man, what a person. I wish I could have been here. I wish I would have had the opportunity to sit and talk to him and just see what he was thinking and how he could stay so focused.
Thousands flocked to Goldfield to see the fight. It was mostly a white crowd and they were rooting for Nelson. But they soon came to admire the old master for his patience through all the ridicule and racism. On the day of the fight, the temperature topped 100 degrees and anticipation was high. As the fight began, one thing was clear: Gans was a skilled boxer.
The other thing that he learned to use, he used the uppercut a lot in some of his boxing. And then another thing that he used was how he'd get in close. When they clinch and they would hold and they'd be in tight, well, he would hold them in tight when he'd make his punches and stuff. And then he lasted in there for 42 rounds, breaking his hand in the 33rd round. I would have to think when he broke his hand in the 33rd round, he said, okay, either I'm gonna go out here a winner, period, because he kept fighting.
While I enjoyed hearing the stories, I wondered where exactly in Goldfield the fight took place. Once again, I looked for Brian.
Where exactly are you taking me here? I mean, we're in the middle of what looks like a junkyard, really.
Kinda, but where I'm taking you is the original location of the Gans-Nelson fight scene. That's the location of the 42-round longest bare-knuckle fight in American history. It came in at the early 20th century. That was here in Goldfield, Nevada.
So you went to some trouble to actually find where this location was, right?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Well, I got on the hill up there, that ridge right there, and I have a picture in a book that shows the location where they had pegged, and I lined it up with hilltops, and then I managed to get it.
So we pretty much know that this is the actual place where the fight took place, that the ring is right in this area somewhere.
The ring surrounded this big square.
And you know, I want to sort of go back 100 and some years and actually see that in my mind right here, right?
Yeah.
You see those thousands of people around the ring? Must have been incredible.
Quite the show.
Right?
Actually, I have a death record where a man came here. On his way back, he was so excited. Apparently, he had a heart attack and died.
He gave him a heart attack. The Gans-Nelson fight gave him a heart attack.
It was that exciting.
That exciting. Well, I can understand that. Sporting events, I can understand that. People get pretty worked up. This is really incredible to have this location here because this is the fight of the century.
Yes.
It was the fight of the century, and it was the first black boxing champion in the United States. Joe Gans became the first real African American to become a boxing champion. This story has become one of the almost forgotten stories of sports history.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that's, you know, it never, other than the time it happened, it just kind of drifted away.
Exactly why Joe Gans has been lost to history is a topic that historians have discussed. Some believe that he just didn't fit the stereotype of the black athlete. Consequently, society, the media, and people in general didn't know what to do with him. But here in Goldfield, the scene of the fight has been memorialized thanks to a plaque that Brian made.
And for Joe Gans to take home that victory was an extraordinary thing in American history.
Yep, that was it.
And it all happened right here.
There was no doubt the Gans fight had an impact on sports and on society.
The Joe Gans fight changed the sport of boxing. Before this fight, there was very little boxing promotion. By Tex Rickard having the wherewithal to think of bringing a prize fight to this area and putting it together the way that they did, opened up the doors for what we see today in Madison Square Garden, as well as Las Vegas, Nevada, known as the boxing capital of the world.
After Goldfield, Gans went back to his hometown of Baltimore.
Joe Gans had finished his fight. He went back and opened up a hotel. It was called the Goldfield, named after Goldfield. He opened up that hotel, and U.B. Blake also started there, the jazz artist.
The story of Joe Gans matters for many reasons and should never be forgotten.
Joe Gans was the first American-born African-American to be world champion, ever. So when you share that and then you talk about him being in a prize fight, for me, the Joe Gans story is not that it's just African-American history. It's Nevada history and it's world history, especially because at the time of the fight, the world was watching.